Good afternoon. Welcome to the Government House Weekly Press Briefing. Today is Monday, September 9th, 2019. We begin today with the Bahamas. The people of the Virgin Islands community continue to send our thoughts and prayers to the people of the Bahamas, where there are reports of at least 45 dead and hundreds more missing as a result of Hurricane Dorian. Governor Bryan understands the magnitude of this humanitarian crisis and wrote to the White House last week in support of humanitarian aid to the people of the Bahamas. The governor was compelled to do this as the leader of a similarly situated Caribbean island that are vulnerable to the monstrous storms and other impacts of climate change. The Office of the Governor is finalizing details on a relief fundraising effort, along with the 33rd Legislature and Senate President Novelle Francis and Senator Alicia Barnes. And we'll also be working with a local third-party fiduciary. In the coming days, we will announce the fiduciary and ways to go about contributing. Additionally, the First Lady has been in communication with the First Lady of the Bahamas concerning additional ways to support the relief effort there. As this week marks the 2-year anniversary of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, the recovery and rebuilding efforts here locally in the territory are continuing and are ongoing. Continuing the recovery is a key priority of the Bryan-Roach administration, and Governor Bryan last week announced the release of the Federal Register for Tranche 3 of the CBDGR funding, which amounts to about $744 million. We've also received the grant approval for the $777 million in Tranche 2 and have begun issuing requests for proposal against the $243 million in the first tranche of CBDGR funding. In addition, the administration has successfully negotiated the adoption of federal standards for all road repairs under the FEMA Public Assistance Program for our roads throughout the territory. This will allow us to begin immediately moving forward on a number of pending road projects across the territory, and so we're very grateful for that, and we're excited to announce that here this afternoon. The Office of the Governor also has submitted a budget supplemental to the Governor's FY 2020 executive budget. The administration is pleased to announce its supplemental, and which includes $1.7 million to the Department of Justice for the White Collar Crime Unit. The governor has also been walking through the towns on his daily routines and through some of the schools, and have noticed quite a number of areas where we can improve as a territory, and has also included $600,000 to the Department of Public Works for street maintenance, for cleaning crews throughout the towns of Frederickstead, Christiansted, Charlotte Amalie, and Cruz Bay to keep the towns clean. So we're excited to announce that in the budget supplemental, and we look forward to the legislature approving the governor's FY 2020 executive budget. Also in the budget supplemental, we have included $3 million for outstanding obligations from prior years. Speaking of the budget, I would just like to give a recap of some of the things that are included in the governor's FY 2020 executive budget. The governor, of course, continues to work on its priority of stabilizing government, mainly in continuing to address the long-standing obligations of the Virgin Islands government. Governor Bryan's FY 2020 budget proposes $1.2 billion in expenditures, which includes more than $69 million for debt service payments, $216.3 million in federal funds, and $941.9 million of local funds. The governor's FY 2020 budget assumes no new debt financing or new taxes and includes full funding to pay increases negotiated by the previous administration. The personnel services section of the budget also includes a 1% set aside for expected salary increases. The budget also includes a $75 million set aside to pay income tax refunds owed to Virgin Islands residents. It also includes an increase in the minimum requirement of the Insurance Guarantee Fund, funding it from $10 million to $20 million, and a $5 million appropriation for the Budget Stabilization Fund. Speaking of income tax, Refunds, the governor announced Thursday that the Virgin Islands Bureau of Internal Revenue paid out an additional $4 million in income tax refunds to tax filers in the territory. The latest round of tax refunds comprises approximately 1,500 refunds covering tax year 2016 and representing returns filed through the April 18, 2017 filing deadline for tax year 2016. IRB Director Joel Lee said, however, that the latest release of funds does not include all the returns filed on the filing deadline, as there were quite a number of people who filed on the deadline. Those funds will be issued in the next release of funds, Director Lee said, before making a point to note that refunds are processed and issued based on the date the return was filed. And that's a very important point of clarification to note. I will repeat that. The refunds are processed and issued based on the date the return was filed. So for those in the community who may have questions as to whether their release or their refund is included in the latest release, it's pay attention to those filing dates. That's how they're issued. To date, the administration has paid more than $21.4 million in income tax refunds to over 9,300 individual tax filers. The figure accounts for $19.3 million in refunds and just about $2 million in interest owed. Of course, this week also marked the beginning of the 2019-2020 school year, and Governor Bryan welcomed students back at the Charlotte Amalie High School, the Lockhart Elementary School, and also in St. Croix, the governor visited the Arthur A. Richards, Claudio Marco, Juanita Gardine, and Pearl B. Larson schools in St. Croix. The governor made mention to some of the infrastructure challenges of our educational institution and made a commitment to moving forward that the administration will fund school maintenance more aggressively. School maintenance for the Department of Education is a continuing process and a process that we all acknowledge has its challenges. It is important to note that we are dealing with aging structures like the Charlotte Amalie High School, which is approximately 64 years old. However, these challenges are, decades old, but they're not new to the administration. But we are prepared and committed to confronting these challenges. And so that's why also in our FY 2020 executive budget, we have set aside $2 million for school maintenance, which is a figure that has been substantially more than has been allocated in recent years. In keeping with its commitment to lowering utility rates and adding renewables to the power grid, Governor Bryan is introducing a new net metering program. And here to discuss more in detail what that program entails is the director of the office of the Virgin Islands Energy Office, Mr. Kyle Fleming.
Good afternoon. As Mr. Woda mentioned, in fulfilling Governor Albert Bryan's vision to promote renewable energy development within the Virgin Islands, the Virgin Islands Energy Office has worked with the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority and the Public Services Commission with technical assistance rendered from the U.S. Department of Energy to develop the Transitional Net Energy Billing Program. The primary focus of the Net Energy Billing Program is to allow residents to offset their electricity costs by selling power back to the Virgin Islands Water and Power Authority grid for credit. The intent of this transitional program is to create a compromise between WAPA and ratepayers while fostering sustainable distributed generation throughout the territory. WAPA customers who currently participate in the net energy metering program, known as net metering, will not be transitioned into the newly proposed net energy billing program. The net energy billing program will apply exclusively to future adopters and grid-connected customers who installed solar outside of the original net metering program. Under the proposed program, which is scheduled to go before the Public Services Commission on October 3rd, residents can sell distributed energy back to the WAPA grid at a rate of 75% of the current LEAC. For example, At the current LEAC, which is 19.3 cents per kilowatt hour, the excess generation credit for consumers would be approximately 14.5 cents per kilowatt hour. Also under the proposal, participants of the program would be required to pay a monthly grid access charge based on the customer's system size. The proposed grid access charge is equivalent to $5 per kilowatt installed. As an example, for systems between the size of 2 and 6 kilowatt, it would be $20 per month. For system size between 6 and 9 kilowatts, it would be $35 per month. And for system size between 9 and 12 kilowatts, will be $50 per month. For system size over 12 kilowatts, it will require a supplemental review on a case-by-case basis. Under the new proposal, excess generation credits exceeding a customer's total bill amount will not accrue as it did under the previous program, but rather will be zeroed out at the end of each billing period. Additionally, unused excess energy credits cannot be used to offset the grid access charge, as it will be implemented as a non-bypassable charge. To roll out the newly proposed program, the Virgin Islands Energy Office is also developing a streamlined distributed generation permitting process. Excuse me. The overall goal is to simplify and expedite the permitting process for applicants, organize and manage data and documentation for WAPA and the Department of Natural Resources, and provide the community with consistent and accurate information relative to the program. Thank you. I'll turn my computer off.
All right, that concludes. If we don't have any questions, that concludes our press briefing for Monday, September 9th, 2019. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Have a good day.